So, on competitive military, how much control will be on the monopolized sector board? Well, I break down government power into five sectors for competitive military. So, in the foreign protection system, we have the diplomats. That's one sector, and that will have primary control at the sector board level. You still join a competitive government, then they send up representatives up to a monopolized diplomat competitive governance sector board. So a monopolized sector board. There will be one top diplomat, probably elected by individuals or by their competitive governments, because people join a competitive government with a certain philosophy of how they want diplomats to work. They will handle dealing with foreign powers and foreign countries, and also immigration laws and stuff like that. So that's a very important sector, one of the most important sectors. Well, all the sectors are super important. But that will have primary control by that one top leader and by the representatives that go up there. They still will have to work through the competitive governances to a very large degree, and they get their funding from the military capability system. That's going to be 5% of GDP coming to them through businesses and individuals with mandatory sales taxes. So that's important to understand. The second sector would be, now I understand the diplomats are not quote unquote the military, but it's part of the foreign protection system. So we're going to keep on going with that. The commander in chief is going to be just the officer corps. So that's going to be highly important, and that's going to be hierarchy, significant hierarchy. There will be one top commander in chief, and they will, you get the top commander in chief by elections again. It can be by individual, but it's most likely going to be more by the competitive governments sending up and voting on the top commander in chief. So that's an important job. But they will still work through the competitive governments. Each competitive government will have its top commander in chief for the competitive government, but for the sector board, that's the top guy. So those two are definitely sector board heavy on the control. I'm gonna skip the military corporations for a minute. That's where over 90% of the money's going to go, and we're going to come right back to it. The military capability system is they collect money from all the states. All the states have to contribute 5% of GDP to them, and that's going to be through sales taxes, maybe some income taxes, maybe some VAT taxes, value-added taxes, however they choose. Every state gets to choose how they want to collect that money, but they have to get 5% of their state's portion of GDP. So if you have a smaller state, they have a smaller GDP, it's still 5%. A bigger state, still 5% of their GDP. I know GDP is for the nation. I'm talking about their state's portion of it. So every state has its own GDP, or I'm not sure exactly what it's called for the state's portion of that. But everybody has to contribute. Then they will determine how that money is going to be spent. Again, 90% of it's going to be on the military. We'll go over that in a second. And then and then they will also decide how the money's going to be spent for the commander-in-chief, how much they will get, how much will the diplomats get, how much will the military authorization agency get. Now, the military authorization agency is a separate sector. They're going to be a major oversight sector. They have to approve anybody with military power. So everybody in the military, any defense contractors, any private sector places out there, they have to approve them. And with a 70% vote, by the way, or a vote of 70% of the representative, let me say it better. Representatives of 70% of the people is the best way to say it. So that's a very important aspect there. So nobody's allowed to be a commander-in-chief, a diplomat, even though any person in the military. If you have military power, you have to be authorized by them. You have to get your badge, your authorization papers, and that's very important. And that is per job. So a commander-in-chief obviously has to have a bigger approval than the lowest person in the totem pole, a private or whatever. So military authorization agency is a very, very important sector. They will be sector board heavy. They will still work through the competitive governments, but that is done by representatives of the competitive governments coming up to make a representative agency, or I'm sorry, a authorizing agency at the sector board level, and that's where the main power will be. Okay, the military corporations will be 90% of the money. I want about 1.5% of the GDP. I'm sorry, 5% of GDP, which is roughly $1.5 trillion. Now, some of that's going to be foreign aid and the like. Not anything dealing with helping alleviate poverty. That's in the charity sector. I got a system for that. I'm talking about just for military foreign aid. So they will determine how much that is, how much we should be spending on ours versus how much we should be spending helping out our allies in unstable areas. And because helping out our allies in unstable areas can significantly reduce our chances of having to take care of those issues ourselves. You look at some places in the Middle East, if we contribute to some of our allies, we might be able to not have to go to war ourselves because they're taking care of some of the business. Anyway, let's go military corporations. Roughly 50 different military corporations, all publicly traded corporations where any American citizen only, can own stocks. And then when you own stock in a military corporation, you get to have voting rights. And I'm going to have a meaningful way of doing voting rights when you own stocks, whether it's road stocks or military stocks or any stocks from any corporation out there. I'm going to have a way of having more of a meaningful way for you to advance your interest, your values in your investment into these things. So if you have a retirement account, you will have a way of having voting rights, a proper voting rights, turn proxies over to some people that you agree with on how to handle proper corporate government. Anyway, so you have 50 military corporations. Their job is to bring military capabilities to the country, and that is their full job, is to provide military capabilities to the commander-in-chief. And the commander-in-chief can only use that power if the diplomats say you can use that power, declaration of war and the like. And that's going to usually take 70%. So we're going to have a lot less war. Not necessarily, but we'll see what the diplomats do with 70% requirements. Anyway, now Commander-in-Chief can obviously use the military on our land, on American land, if they are being threatened or being attacked. So if we get an attack on American soil, Commander-in-Chief does not have to have more authorization through the diplomats. That's foreign policy. But here, our policy is we protect our own land, and the Commander-in-Chief has inherent power to do that on our land or our interest, and that's going to be all spelled out. The Constitution and the diplomat foreign policy, the Commander-in-Chief sector, the military sector, the authorization sector, they're going to be spelling out the rules about when the Commander-in-Chief can use that power on American soil or American interest. Okay, the military corporations will be supplying the ships, the tanks, the planes, the weapon systems, the satellites, the long-range bombers, the personnel, the guns, the rifles, the whatever. They will be supplying all that. And the military capability system will determine what percentage each corporation has of the full military capabilities of providing the military capabilities. I maybe said that wrong. But if a corporation one says, they say, I have these capabilities, I'm supplying to the America, to the Commander-in-Chiefs, and they and the military capability system says that's 2.1% of the military budget, then they get 2.1% of the military budget. And that percentage goes all the way out to the last dollar. So that percentage keeps on going with a lot of different numbers after that decimal point. Another military corporation might be 6%. One might be 7%. One might be 1.2%. So it's going to be 4.3896731%. So it keeps on going out. So each additional asset, each additional personnel, each additional weapon, each additional tank or rifle will add to our military capability. Now, if they put out people who are just with a musket, low tech, not much forces, not a way to getting anywhere, then they're not going to get funded very much. That's a very low percentage of the military capability. But if a military corporation uses their inventiveness, their innovativeness to create a new weapon system that can do a lot of things for the military corporations, to give the commander-in-chief a lot of capabilities, a lot of options, then they will get more money. Whether that's satellites, whether that's drones, whether that's fighter pilots, whether that's whoever that is. Now, the commander-in-chiefs can use any of the forces supplied to them by the military corporations in their duly effective orders. So, the military corporation will not have a lot of sector board control. Their control is they can only supply the military to the commander-in-chief, and they have that control. So the military corporations will not have a super big hierarchy. Maybe a little bit, but that's more organizational and to see what's going on as a whole to make sure that they are getting capabilities in every area. But that's more the military capability system. Reign is you want to make sure you got the tanks and the planes and the ships and the refuelers and whatever the military needs. You have the different areas that you need. So this is not about what ships should be used or what regulations should be done. This is about a framework. And the biggest part of free enterprise benefits is going to come where you have 90% of the military spending is going to be through the military corporations to supply people and weapon systems, and that's going to bring free enterprise. But the rest of it is going to be using the control of representatives to make sure that's done properly. Anyway, a lot being said there. There'll be a rating system for every one of these sectors. You look at each one of these sectors, and there'll be a rating system analyzing all the different areas of what they're doing to make sure civil liberties are not abused, to make sure the diplomats are not going wild, to make sure the military capability is spending the money correctly, to make sure military authorization agency is doing the proper oversight. There'll be high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, and even forcing government experts or rating system experts to debate each other. So if somebody comes out with a report, they have to answer the questions of the other rating agencies to stay a rating agency. You have to. It's a mandate to be a rating agency. You have to put out your information. You have to answer the questions. You have to put out your information properly. You don't have to agree, but you do have to put out your information properly and to say where you got your information from. So the rating agency will be a big part of preventing abuse and corruption. But this whole system, especially the military authorization agency, will make sure the abuse does not happen. Plus, everyone wants to spend their money properly when they have limited money, and they have to attract citizens to join them, to get them better representation, to get them better money, to get them better whatever. So the full system is made to prevent abuse, corruption. It limits and monopoly problems of creating a military, the monopoly inefficiencies, let's say, and it allows private sector free enterprise benefits to have the role of prices really come into play in creating the best capabilities for the military. Okay, a lot being said here. We already got 15 minutes on this, and a lot more to see at Haley2024.org. Until the next video.